3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Welcome back to another edition of GrokTALK. We're glad to be here. Nice and cold in New Hampshire this morning. Snow up north at Skip's Place, and at freezing down there with Mike and myself in the southern part of the state. Not the warmest day, but it's a good morning to stay in and listen to the program. We've got David Bozell from ForAmerica coming on later today. He's going to talk to us about tax policy. We've also got Kimberly Morin is going to give us an update on the hearing this week on the Balsam's bill, SB 30, and all the different things that go on with that. Ed Naile is going to be in the room with us to talk about the domicile situation, and that went to the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court this week, and we're going to see what goes on there. He's got a lot of information for us. He's got some updates on the Jared Cram case, and we've also got Jane Cormier going to give us a life update, and we've also got on the phone with us right now Max Abramson coming to do a legislative update. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. So, what's going on at the State House this week?
We actually have three very important bills coming to the House. This Wednesday is going to be a pretty busy one, and there are recommendations coming down. This is the first time I've been contacted by the quote-unquote Republican leadership office asking me to vote Republican, which is on SB 116, which is constitutional carry, which passed in the House Criminal Justice Committee along party lines 10-6. That one will be will probably pass. We finally have leadership supporting it, and that will go to the governor's desk. And unfortunately, Governor Hassan has indicated that she is probably just going to go along with the Police Chiefs Association, which does not support the bill.
It is, I think that was a given. I don't know that we were ever going to get her to do anything. I think our best chance was that she might just let it become law without her signature, but it's a big issue for the left. I can't imagine them letting this go.
Well, she is almost certainly running for Senate. That's what the rumor mill is saying. And I don't think she wants to upset the gun owners' vote. And there is a lot of public support for constitutional carry, also known as Vermont carry, here in New Hampshire, and there was very little opposition to the bill. In fact, only a handful of people showed up in opposition to the last hearing. So we're hoping that it passes.
Oh, hang on.
If there's so little opposition, what is the chance of a veto override?
Well, Governor Hassan wouldn't be getting very much from a veto override, or from a veto, I should say. The problem is that if the bill comes down on party lines, as it did in the Senate, the Democrats have 10 of the 24 Senate spots, and they have 160 spots in the House of Representatives. So they have about 2/5 in both houses. You need 2/3 to override, so it would be very difficult to override her veto.
Okay.
So what else you got? You said there was two other bills?
There are two other bills. The next big one that's been in the news is the so-called Balsam's bailout. This one's been going back and forth and back and forth. They've amended it and changed it. They were going to use tax increment finance districts. They were going to exempt it from taxes for a while, although that never panned out. And finally, the amendment that they're pushing is the $28 million loan guarantee that has overwhelming public opposition on social media and everywhere else. And, of course, we've all received emails and requests and people asking us to vote no on this. The people who are supporting it are, of course, Les Otten, who has scrounged up almost enough financing, but they want the taxpayers to guarantee the last 38% of their financing to get that project going now. A number of people have mentioned online that the project failed for a reason, that it's outdated, that it's too far off the beaten path, that there's no great infrastructure supporting it, and that it's just too far out of the way, and the buildings are in terrible shape right now, and it's been gutted as it is. Now, I did testify, and I brought up the issue of the state's bond rating. I testified in front of the Finance Committee on during the hearing, and the concern that I brought up was that if we keep doing this, the advocates of this are saying that they don't just want to do $28 million for the balsams, that this will just be the first in a long line of projects in unincorporated areas just like it.
My question to you, this is Skip, and thanks for coming on, Max. During the testimony, has anyone brought up the phrase crony capitalism? I mean, I look at this as a staunch conservative of limited government and say this is not what government should be doing, is funding private organizations, no matter what it is. You know, there's a reason if Otten can't get all of the funding that he desires for this thing, it really isn't that good of a deal. So why should government take this on?
Exactly. It suggests that the would-be investors are looking at this and saying, we don't see a return here. So they're not willing to go all in. If they thought this thing was going to be booked to the hilt and coining money hand over fist, they would be ripping his arm off. They would be trying to buy his remaining shares too.
That's right, and no one can paint a picture, no one can connect the dots and show how the revenue will come in, because the revenue wasn't coming in the last time it was open. So what type of facility they have in mind, I'm not sure, but it doesn't strike me as being good enough from the state's vantage point. It looks like it would cost too much, and the risk is just much too high. So that the state would not get anything back from it.
Yeah. So again, Max, I'm asking: did anybody throw that phrase "crony capitalism" around during testimony?
You know, I don't recall hearing that. There's a 4-hour-long video of the testimony. I'm in there at about the 3-hour and 10-minute mark, and I didn't hear anyone else. All of the people who were coming forward for the first 3 hours of that 4-hour hearing were testifying in favor of it. But I didn't want to go that far and use the cronyism term. It did strike me that way, that this isn't something that would be done for mom and pop. Although I did bring up Business Express, which filed for Chapter 11 back in 1996, leaving the state with $15 million in unpaid bonds. And if we've already learned that lesson with the Business Express air shuttle project, which finally left the state, are we going to have another and another and another? And the companies that do debt ratings look at state legislatures to spend money on projects like this, and it would negatively affect our bond rating on about $2.7 billion in state debt. So, you know, even if the project worked out, we'd be paying a higher interest rate on our entire state debt.
Well, that doesn't sound too great. All right, so we've got another bill, you said, third one?
Now, the big one in the media is the casino bill. That one's been amended and changed, and it's been going back and forth for almost 20 years. And what some of the conservatives are concerned about is, with the casino bill, yes, it might bring in a lot of revenue. We don't know how much it will bring in. The problem is it will give effectively one company a near monopoly. There would be two casinos eventually. One company would get a near monopoly on a casino in Salem, and of course it's a misdemeanor to do any type of gaming or gambling of any sort in the state unless, and this bill would change it, unless you're at that casino. So I've been getting a few emails and phone calls from people about this, and looking at the discussion by the reps online, it doesn't look like it's likely to pass. It will probably be a very close vote. Last time they brought this up, the measure failed 173 to 172. So it was Speaker Terry Naile who cast the tie-winning vote to defeat the bill. And she was, of course, very actively working to defeat casinos. And she was kind of the linchpin that finally killed the bill.
Yeah, see, I have a strange view on this. I believe from the point of view of the the ability to freely associate and to open any kind of business that isn't actually otherwise criminal, that people should just be allowed to have casinos if they want them, and therefore I think this is what you're working towards. Let's just repeal the statute that bans gambling and let the casino operators come in if they see value, and if they don't see value, they won't come. And that avoids, again, the crony capitalism or crony socialism aspect, because otherwise you can bet somebody on the side that's trying to legislate this is going to be pocketing some cash.
And the other problem is, once you have one casino that comes in, they will almost certainly work actively as they have before to block any competition, even gambling in people's homes, even poker tables, even poker rooms, even clubs. Every chance they can get to force people, if you want to play games, you have to go to their casino and pay the fee and play their games by their rules, and they have to be the ones making the money. There can be no other competing house. And so that's the real concern that they have. A lot of poker aficionados and a lot of gaming aficionados really enjoy, playing at different locations. And if in New Hampshire there's only one location or two locations and you have to play through this company, that's the concern that people are bringing up. Now, the J.R. Hole has an amendment to replace the entire bill by simply repealing RSA 647, Section 2, which is the ban on gaming and gambling. And I'm sure that'll get some lively debate and probably a few votes. But the interesting thing about that bill is there wouldn't be any revenue coming in for the state, and so then there's no opportunity to reduce business taxes or property taxes.
Right, so you have to ask. I mean, so if you make it an actual free market, Max, doesn't the state get tax revenue from the fact that the business exists?
Well, if it is run as a business, remember, most of the gambling locations are just, people playing out of their homes or playing on the ships and whatnot. Now, the other concern that's been brought up with slot machines and video lottery is some of the reps don't want to have convenience casinos, which are these really small locations. I don't know if you've been out there in Nevada. They have these really small locations that have no decorations. There's nothing interesting to them. You just go in and play on a machine.
Slot barns.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple of those driving through. You crest a hill and there's a gas station there, and it's got some other big building attached. It's like, Joe's Gas and Gamble.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we are getting very near the end of our segment. Anything else real quick?
There are a few other small bills coming up over the next couple of weeks, but I'll have to review them and do a little bit of research on them before I talk about them. But it was great talking to you folks, and I'll be sure and give you guys an update on what happens on Wednesday.
All right, thank you very much, Max. You have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All righty, talk to you later. Bye. All right, that was Max. We're going to call Jane Cormier next for a life update, and after that we have Ed Naile coming in to talk about the domicile voter fraud trip to the state Supreme Court and the complete disaster that's turning out to be. After that, Kimberly Morin, and then David Bozell from ForAmerica. Somebody's calling us. Maybe it's Jane. All right, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hang on.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
It's GrokTALK. We are back. Mike doesn't have his headphones on. Thank you very much to Max Abramson for coming in this morning. Calling in, sorry. If things are a little sketchy today, we're having some technical problems. Your cord's wrapped around your microphone. But we don't have a problem with Jane Cormier, who's on the line. Hi, Jane. How you doing? Jane, you there? Oh, I pushed the button. There we go. Try that. Okay. See,
yeah, and Jane is helping to beat our technical glitches because she dialed us. And
yes,
yeah,
we're
you're ahead of the game there, Jane.
We're fumbling around here this morning. Things keep disconnecting. We have problems getting the jingle box to work. We're having issues with the camera. Everything, and then of course we're trying to adjust minutes before the show starts for just an audio live stream, and then the camera starts to work again. So I got to go back and set that back up. And it's been an interesting morning, but we won't bother you with our troubles. Let's talk about life, shall we?
Sure, let's talk about life. That's always a good thing in my book. There is so much going on with New Hampshire Right to Life right now. I'm happy to say that we're more than active these days, and we have a couple of things I really wanted to throw by the folks that are happening this week, especially. A bill called SB 40, which is a fetal homicide bill, Senate bill, is going to be heading over to the Senate. It's been amended by the House. The bill is really, SB 40 was a watered-down version of a really good fetal homicide bill passed by the House this session called Griffin's Law, or HB 560. So we had two bills, and we have to try to push through the bill that really deserves to be on the books here in New Hampshire. And so the amended SB 40 is heading over to the Senate, we think, this week. Actually, you know what? It just passed in the House committee, so it's probably going to hit the House first this Wednesday, because it's going to have to be hitting the House since it was amended. So I misspoke. So the representatives this week are going to take up the amended SB 40, and we want to make sure that folks call their representatives to make sure they pass this bill. It's 8 weeks, and it gives an effective and a legal standing justice for the preborn child that would be killed during a criminal act.
And it's pretty specific, right? I mean, it is. I mean, you know, the problem that we've seen, and I think I sent you a link about a similar bill in Colorado where the abortion activists are like, this is a personhood bill, this is a personhood bill. And, you know, their fear is that once you declare personhood, obviously they get full constitutional protections, and then they're up a creek without a paddle. This is really, it specifies criminal behavior, correct?
Absolutely, and in fact, in the House bill that was passed, which I think is mirrored in the SB 40 amended bill, it specifically says this does not pertain to abortion.
Okay.
I mean, you couldn't be any more specific if you tried. And those that want to consolidate the issue, it is not the issue. We are trying to address the fact that if a preborn child is killed during a criminal act, that family and that child deserve to have some sort of justice, certainly a recognition of the existence of that child. So this amended SB 40 that's hitting the House this week, really, call your representatives. Call Senator Regina Virgil, who was Regina Virgil was the prime sponsor of the SB 40, which was the watered-down version of fetal homicide. It was a fetal homicide bill that hurts us more than do anything to help us. That's how nebulous it was. That's how you simply couldn't litigate the bill as written in SB 40 before it was amended. So we're asking Senator Bozell to stand by the amended version of this bill when it hits the Senate, because we assume it will hit the Senate.
Now, you and I were talking on email about this the other day, and we will definitely try to motivate some folks to call into the Senate. And we were having some discussions about the motivation for this, and the problem appears to be that if the watered-down version gets passed, it'll be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to make a meaningful change to existing legislation if this becomes law. So we want to try to pass the right bill the first time. and not have to screw around for the next 20 years trying to fix it.
There's 6 words in this bill that Senator Bozell put in that was at the end of the bill. You almost missed it. In fact, I've spoken to many co-sponsors that didn't see the sentence. That's how it was. And the sentence is this. This is the highest barrier that you have here. It says, quote, capable of sustained extrauterine viability.
Right, so it has to be... You have to be able to, and that's as nebulous as when does life begin, as far as quite a few people are concerned.
Yeah, how long?
Totally.
How long is how long? That's the question.
How long is how long? Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And what's viability?
Depends on what
right?
the definition of is, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those.
None of us are viable if we're not given water in 4 days. It's just not going to happen.
So what does it mean? Right. You're absolutely right. Crazy bill. So we're really frightened of it, that if this bill passes, it offers cover for those that really don't want a fetal homicide bill. And then when the life group goes back to the table and says, we want to make this bill better, the response is going to be to us, well, you already have a fetal homicide bill. We don't need to talk about this. This is a bad fetal homicide bill.
Yeah, this is almost the same kind of situation as we saw in Indiana, where I think the Republicans tried to do the right thing for religious freedom and then ended up caving and made things worse than they were before the bill got sponsored.
Yes.
Yeah, and now everybody knows they'll cave, so...
Yeah.
Well, the thing is New Hampshire Right to Life will not cave. And I think that this is probably something that is part of the dialogue that we're going to take up. We would rather have nothing on the books than to have such a terrible bill sitting there, or law sitting there. So that's why it's so important. The amended language goes back to the Griffin's Law, which is Rep. Rideout's bill, which is a great bill, starts at 8 weeks. And, it's very simplistic, one-page bill, right? And says right in it, does not cover any abortion, okay? Could not be clearer. We want that language in SB 40, and we hope that that's going to happen.
Hey, Jane, quick question for you. Is this part of the process of the GOP, especially the NHGOP, trying to divest themselves from basically playing with those icky social issues? They hate it. They only want to deal with what they call the fiscal issues. Not that they've done such a great job at that either. Maggie Hassan wanted $1 billion more in the budget. Well, the Republicans, we're only going to raise it up $500 million. Such as that. And they never seem to understand. Every social issue has a fiscal cost. And as Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture. And yet they just don't seem to understand. Why should we fight for them when they won't fight for us?
I think that what you're talking about politically with the vessel of the GOP is sort of where the entire country is right now, and that is the lack of desire to stand behind what you know is a principle that you should be supporting, right? And I think that when you have a culture that's trying to do the easy thing or the thing that will serve whatever purpose that's on the table thing, then you don't end up standing for the principle of the thing. And we have to all get back to just stiffening our back and saying, stop. This was the question. This is the principle we should follow, and we should fight for that principle. We should fight for the principle because that's all we have at the end of the game. That's it. Okay. So I'm and I don't care what the political parties are saying anymore. I mean, the truth is, morally speaking, we do have a conception of what is probably the right thing to do. And politically speaking, you don't. Political speak is all about something else. We should head toward what the right thing to do here. And in this bill specifically, fetal homicide, it's a disgrace that New Hampshire is one of 3 states that has nothing on the books. That's a disgrace to this state. And it needs to be rectified, and we need the right bill. We need the right law.
All right. What else we got on life? Anything else in the legislature? We only have 3 minutes, so.
Okay, 3 minutes. Well, the big thing is New Hampshire Right to Life this week put out a presser saying that we are actually working with the Alliance Defending Freedom to file a Supreme Court, suit, which is basically New Hampshire Right to Life versus the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And this addresses the 2011 event where our executive council rejected Title Title X grant, and the government, through HHS, subverted that and brought in a sole non-competitive grant to Planned Parenthood of New England. And so we have been trying for years to get information pursuant to that, and it's been very difficult. Recently in February, the first circuit court, I believe, said that they weren't going to support our suit, so we have taken it to the Supreme Court. And we're going to fight at the Supreme Court that Americans deserve to know what taxpayer dollars are being spent for. There should be accountability and transparency, and we're going to see what we can do about fighting for that.
That's a good plan right there, and sounds expensive.
Well, you know what? Like I said, principle counts, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And don't forget, no taxpayers are going to be paying for this one. So
that's true.
This is one that we will fight for to the end until they have shut the door. And there is some real positive optimism here that the Supreme Court will hear this case, because the pieces of information that we have that have been released subsequently are really, really damning in my mind. I mean, they show a real effort to hide the truth from the folks, and that's not what our government should be doing.
All right, cool.
All right,
Let me
and
just
don't
see.
forget, next Saturday, I have to put out there, May 2nd, 9 till 11:30. Come and see us. Come and see us at our open house. New Hampshire Right to Life is having an open house. We'll have information on new endeavors. We're going to have some great food, fellowship. It will be a fun time to come up and see what New Hampshire Right to Life is all about. 8 North Main Street at our new location. So I want to get that in, too.
All right. Thanks, Jane. Appreciate your time. You have a good weekend.
Hey, you too. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks to Jane. Important stuff. SB 40. Rep. Bozell and Sumter State Senator Bozell, Regina, who I know, in the New Hampshire Senate. And so look her up on the General Court. We'll publish some information on Granite Rock so that you'll be able to contact her and reach out and give you some information. You can talk to her about this bill and why we don't want it watered down. Coming up next, Ed Naile, who's in the room. And you want to talk, Ed, so I can see I get the right mic?
I'm here in the room.
Right, I got the right microphone because we've been...
Not a lot of room in the room anymore.
Not a lot of room in the room, no. But we're going to make some room and talk about some cornucopia of vote fraud / domicile-related issues in the next segment. After that, Kimberly Morin, and I'm still trying to find out if she's coming in or calling us. She hasn't responded to my email yet. We'll be right back. This is GrokTALK. Stay tuned.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jeanne Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservatives, and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Did you know that if you talk about individual liberties, you might be an extremist?
I hope so.
If you advocate for states' rights, you might be an extremist.
Oh, good. Well, I mean,
if you want to make the world a better place, you might be an extremist. I have the list of 72 Obama.
Oh, yeah. Well,
trigger warnings for.
And who was it stood up only this week and said he was in favor of states' rights and the 10th Amendment?
Extremists.
Yes.
What is that list again?
It's called, this is Obama's 72-point checklist for determining if you might be an extremist.
While they're reading your emails. That's what we're looking for.
May I see that list?
Sure.
You've got to post that up.
You're on. I haven't had a chance to. There's a lot going on.
And we all know.
There's this whole domicile thing.
Domicile. Hey, I got a lawyer gave his law library to CNHD.
Let's show the...
And I have one of the books here he gave us, and it's impossible to believe that this book even exists, but it says domicile. So this is called Corpus Juris Secundum. It's the body of law for America. And it actually has domicile written right there on the cover. Check for yourself. Tell your children you've seen it. And I might mail a copy to the New Hampshire State Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Or they can have this one if they're desperate.
But they won't read it.
They apparently they have their own way of.
They might sit on it to get a better view if they're changing what domicile means.
They sit up so high already.
Not high, apparently not high enough. So
Wednesday I went to a Supreme Court hearing for the case is now called Anne Marie Guare. Guare is her name. This is a litigant from Bangor, Maine, and she's a student here in college in New Hampshire, and she wants to vote in New Hampshire and keep her residency in Maine. That's the new court case we have. It used to be Hannah Rivers versus State of New Hampshire back in 2012 when they filed that before the 2012 election, and the Supreme Court let it just drift by. We had a judge said, "Oh yeah, college students are mobile domiciled." I can't find mobile domiciled in the law anywhere, but he made this new invention called mobile domiciled and said the students don't have to get driver's licenses in New Hampshire or abide by any other statutes. They just come here and they use their college dorm or someplace they're renting as their place to vote from.
So wouldn't this then invalidate the entire purpose of absentee ballots?
Correct. Yeah.
Unless you're actually outside the country and can't vote in Cambodia or wherever the hell you are.
Or outside of New
That's
Hampshire.
fine. So the proper approach should be a simple affidavit that you sign when you go to vote that says, "I solemnly swear that I have not taken or used an absentee ballot for any other state."
Well, we have that. It's called RSA 654-7. In your application, you state under penalty of perjury right now that you are not registered and not voting in any other state, and you're not registered in any other state. So that's what you swear to now. But on top of that, in 2012, the legislature said, we just got to make people aware of the fact that when you declare New Hampshire your domicile to vote, and that's what our Constitution says, when you've reached the age of 18 and you're an inhabitant of New Hampshire, you will vote from your domicile in the town or ward in which you are domiciled. Domiciled's the word. So this Anne Marie Guare is the new litigant for the ACLU and the League of Women Voters to allow non-residents, college students, to just vote here because they're going to school here. We're going to make it sound like there's a fuzzy meeting between resident and domicile. Your legal residency is your domicile. Your permanent residency is your domicile. You can only have one domicile. Once you declare it, that's it. So, in fact, I was talking to the former mayor of Bangor, Maine, yesterday on the phone, and he said that's exactly what the law is in Maine. So it's interesting. Now that we have Anne Marie coming to New Hampshire to vote, she'll be able to sign an affidavit saying that she lives in a certain location. If she doesn't have identification to prove it, She'll have a voter registration card, which apparently now, as of yesterday, I found out that voter registration cards are no longer public documents.
What?
Dave Scott got that from Bill Gardner and from the Dover town clerk.
When did they change that?
2015. That was emailed to me, so I have to go and get turned down in writing and have them confirm that you can't see a voter registration card. But the interesting thing is...
Wait a minute. Who made that change? Was that by statute?
Yeah, they say... Dave Scott sent me something saying it was done in 2013. 2015 is when it takes effect. So Dover has turned him down twice. When I sent him to the Dover City Hall to get copies of the voter registration cards for one of the two of the 40-some people that can't be found by first-class mail in the city of Dover after voting here, this is the 40-some people that we mailed same-day applicants. The mail came back undeliverable because it was no such address, was no such street, was no such house number. So we mailed them again. So there's 40 names on the checklist in Dover of people who are currently allowed to vote that currently cannot be reached by mail or found in an address.
Some deep pockets and
that's
sue.
That's where we're headed. You got to go federal. And I have two of them here that are interesting. Christopher Clarion and there's another character here. There was two of them. Duncan Garmist. There are no such people. No one in America has the last name Clarion. That's a first name. And Duncan Garmist, there's no one in America named Garmist. There is a Garmischt, Germany. There is a Garmeis, which is kind of an Italian name. There's some people that name that. But not only does Duncan Garmist not exist as far as we can tell, neither does 25 School Street. And on the other one, neither does 84 Locust Street for Mr. Clarion. So we've mailed to them. So what I wanted to do was, well, heck, Dover, if you're going to let him be a voter there, can I see his voter registration card? No, you can't see his card. And, oh, by the way, he's been removed. He's no longer on the checklist. So these two guys voted November 4th, 2014, and now they're no longer on the checklist with a fake ID and apparently a fake name. So all I wanted to do was simply find out what is the city of Dover using to tell who these people are. If you wanted to contact them, how would you do it? Because we certainly can't. So we were told that that information is now exempt from the right to know law. I'll confirm that Monday next week. I'll get turned down in writing so I can start a right to know case.
So I think
here's what's funny about this. Some of these people are on the checklist. Let's take somebody who was on the checklist, which was Jared Stephen Cram. If I went to Wilton and said, now, apparently go to Wilton and say, can I see Jared Stephen Cram's voter registration card? They would obviously tell me, oh, no, the law's been changed. I can't see it. But here's one from Pennsylvania. Right here, guys. That's a voter registration form for Jared. And here's his change of address in 2008. And here's his voting record. Now, all this, for a New Hampshire voter, I can't see any information about this guy. I can't see his signature. I can't see his birth date. I can't see his real address. I can't see the voter registration card. I can't see a same-day voter registration application. I can't see a certificate of certificate of domicile. An affidavit saying where he really lives. I can't see any of that here in New Hampshire, but I can get all this from the other states. So this young lady that's suing the state of New Hampshire from the state of Maine to vote here in November of 2016. I can go to Maine and see all this information on her voter card there. So what is the purpose of New Hampshire saying you can't see any information regarding a voter in the state of New Hampshire, but a person from another state can vote here? So if I can go get their birth date and all the relevant information about that person from the other state, so what's the purpose of doing that? Other than to prevent me from finding out who they are.
And to prevent you from knowing that they voted here and there.
Right. That's the main purpose.
And so I think the town of Dover needs to be sued for failing to produce these records and for perpetrating a fraud upon the voters of Dover.
Not just Dover.
The whole state.
The whole state, the AG, the Secretary of State, everybody who's involved in this fraud has to be brought to court, and they have to be embarrassed. And this is just ridiculous.
But I think you pick on a town, one that's not very well off, and bankrupt it.
Well, we're going to do Dover.
And bankrupt it, because if they are deliberately hiding records, whether under cover of law or not, we know that this person was allowed to vote, and now they are not willing to prove that this person was, in fact, legal to vote. then the town is perpetrating a fraud upon its own voters, and it needs to be punished.
They say they're just following the law. So this law has gotten more strict. Every couple of years, something else I can use to identify a voter has been removed from the checklist. That's why, starting back in 2006, I started to pursue these people out of state. This is Jenna Rackavan is a voter in Dover. Jenna Rackavan, here's, you can pass the stuff around. Jenna Rackavan voted in Dover from an address which does not exist. Her name is on the checklist. She's also a voter in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. So I called down there recently. This is her voter history from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, in Schuylkill Township, on Bayberry Drive, right across from the G Lodge where I used to eat breakfast. She is still a registered voter there. I have Connor Dieter Leeds information here. Connor Dieter Leeds voted in Dover in 2014. He's currently a registered voter in Willimantic, Connecticut. So I can get I know his birth date. I know when he voted last in Connecticut. All that information is on the internet. In New Hampshire, if I want a copy of the statewide voter database, can't get it. It's illegal for me to have that. If I want to go to the Secretary of State's office and look something up, I can see it but not copy it. All I had to do was send one single letter to the state of Vermont. They emailed me their current statewide voter database required under motor voter, HAVA, all the federal elections law. So what we've done in New Hampshire is we've pretty much stripped my right to see who else is voting. That denies me my right to vote, because my right to vote another voter who I believe isn't a real voter, my right to do that is equal to my right to vote. So the day I can't challenge another voter who doesn't live here or gave a fake name and a fake address, I've lost my right to vote. So suddenly, I become the victim. We all become victims. If we live in New Hampshire, we're domiciled in New Hampshire, my driver's license says New Hampshire, I am subject to jury duty in New Hampshire, which Jenna Rackavan would not be, Connor Dieter Leeds would not be, or somebody's keeping them off the list so they don't get pulled. Jared Stephen Cram used to be registered in New Hampshire, but the Secretary of State's office, when they heard that I was pursuing him, called the town of Wilton and had him removed upon their own investigation. And I don't think we've announced this before, but I have those emails. I sent a right-to-know request to the Secretary of State's office, and they sent me 5 emails that they sent to Wilton to have Jared removed. Now, as far as I know, Jared Stephen Cram did not send a letter to the town of Wilton saying, take me off. The Secretary of State's office did that after hearing me talk about Jared Stephen Cram on WLMW 90.7 FM on October 10th of last year. By the 21st, he was off the checklist.
Do we have access to those emails?
I've sent you everything, and right now we're going to go public with everything we have. We're going to go public with the fact that the Secretary of State's office is trying to protect low-life, scumbag, vote thief Jared Stephen Cram. Jared Stephen Cram registered to vote in New Hampshire in 2002 and ran for state rep. He's been a registered voter in Pennsylvania since 2005 at least, because that's as far back as the Philadelphia records go that they sent me. But he's been a registered voter in 2005 all the way up to 2014. And he was voting here in 2012. He was on the checklist in Wilton until 2014 when the Secretary of State's office pulled him off. So this is from Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania, 2005 through 2014, Jared Stephen Lowlife Vote Thief Cram, an attorney. I turned him in to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court Bar Association. They sent me multiple letters back, send us in more information, and it's all labeled confidential. Well, that's out the window now. They sent me a letter saying they're not going to pursue this or going to dismiss this case after sending me several, I think I got 3 letters from them. Here's a typical one. This is to advise you that Jared Stephen Cram, Esquire, has been sent a letter of inquiry in regard to the complaint you filed with this office. Mr. Cram now has an opportunity to respond, after which we may contact you for additional input. And they did, and I sent them basically the same stuff. Cram was registered in 2 states. That's a violation of state law in New Hampshire. That's a violation of federal law because you've lied on your that's U.S. Code 42-1973I for you attorneys out there. That's a federal law regarding perjury in federal elections. 2012 was a federal election. So Jared Cram has worked this system like thousands of other people do in New Hampshire, and he was protected by the Secretary of State's office as the courts are now protecting these people. So this is something everybody in New Hampshire has to know. We're going to hand out all the details, and every time one of these people tries to vote in New Hampshire, I'm going to peg them back at their own state. Now, Jared Cram, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court Disciplinary Board, is not going to take any action against him. I'm going to send the same information to TD Bank, where he works in Philadelphia. So they may or may not take an action. We might have somebody at TD Bank that says, gee, there's two opportunities for progress here at the bank. There's Jared Stephen Cram, who's always seems to be on the internet for being a vote thief, right? And then there's this other person. So this is called street justice, Jared. You've been informed by the Supreme Court that I complained against you, and they said that they were not going to proceed because I couldn't show that he voted in 2 states in the same election, which I did. So that's their, they've washed their hands of this. I thought they were a good board because they disbar like a dozen attorneys every month for cheating clients and for drug habits and stuff. I thought they might take some sort of an action. They haven't. I've waited 5 months for the letter to come through saying we're not going to pursue this, and now I can go full bore at Mr. Cram and the rest of these lowlifes, Jenna Rackavan and some of these people here. Of the 40-some, we're going to pursue in the city of Dover. We had a hearing with a ballot law commission and the purpose was to petition the ballot law commission to order Dover to purge their voter list, to take names like this off, like Manchester did in 2014. We turned over names. We used to give names over the internet, over the radio, of voters from 1200 Elm Street. That was a out-of-state voter nest. So the Democrat Party rented multiple rooms for multiple years and ran their election campaigns in Manchester out of 1200 Elm Street. One of those people came here from South Carolina. Her name's Alexandra Perez Caballero. She works for a police department in South Carolina.
I remember her.
Here's all her information, her birth date, where she lives. I can get that from Alexandra Perez Caballero. I can get that from South Carolina. I can't get that here. So New Hampshire's going to have to explain why you want to protect out-of-state voters that steal my vote in New Hampshire. Tell us why. The court system wants to do that. The ACLU wants to do that. The League of Women Voters wants to do that. And the Secretary of State's office wants to do that. Tell us why that's so important to you. If you're that desperate to win an election here in New Hampshire, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Voters show up and shoot down millions of dollars worth of bonds, but these same top-ticket votes all go to left-wing liberals, because that's who these people vote for. When they come here to New Hampshire, they're not voting on school issues and bond issues, even though they can. They're voting top of the ticket. Senate, House, Governor, and then they're out. So that's where you're going to lose. The Republican Party doesn't really care about this, apparently, but they're going to lose all their top-ticket elections to college voters from other states, because this gets worse every single election cycle. We've been tracking it since 2000, and I don't think anybody really wants to debate this anymore. When we sat before the Ballot Law Commission, all they wanted to do was get rid of us. And luckily, Steve Labonte was there. He's the head honcho of the Election Law Division of the Attorney General's office. He came to defend Dover and oppose our request to have Dover's checklist purged. And what he had done was, the first thing out of the mouth of the head of the Ballot Law Commission was, we're only here for one thing today, to see whether or not the city of Dover is following election law. And I said, great. How can they? Because the Attorney General's office, the guy sitting to my right, sent a memorandum out to all election officials. No one is to be turned away. If you come in to vote, you're not to be turned away under any circumstances, is what the memorandum said. It said if someone comes in doesn't have an ID, they're to be given the opportunity to sign a domicile affidavit. It doesn't say they shall sign. They're to be given the opportunity to sign. So if they decide not to, they still get to vote? Who's in charge of elections, Mr. Gardner? Some schlub at the Attorney General's office? Or you, Mr. Gardner, who just admitted we have a problem with drive-by voting? So I think some of us in New Hampshire hear the freight train coming behind them, but we're going to go federal. There's only way to get you guys to stop doing this is go to federal court. I'm waiting for the Supreme Court's response or opinion on this case, the Anne Marie Guerre case, which was Hannah Rivers. That's called the mobile domicile case, where they're arguing the fact that voters here have to register their car. Oh, no, they don't. Well, when that case is decided by the Supreme Court, they'll either do one of two things. Pretend that out-of-staters have a right to vote here, or they'll say, no, your domicile is your legal address. If you're domiciled in another state, that's where you vote. Put on your big boy pants and get an absentee ballot, students. I don't know that they're going to do that. From sitting through that case, I saw one Supreme Court justice say, right there in front of me, and Labonte, the guy who's supposed to be defending our vote, the Supreme Court justice says, well, all you need in New Hampshire to vote is to be an inhabitant of the age 18. The rest of that sentence is, and you will vote in town or ward in which you are domiciled. It's clear, and that's the way it is all over the country. They might use resident, they might use different terms, but when you go to vote, you are declaring your legal residence. What's on your driver's license? Oh, the other thing they were asking is, what does a driver's license have to do with voting? Well, in many other states, the DMV and your voter registration are the same place.
The problem now is with all of these illegal aliens now being given driver's license, you've just added 541,000 illegal voters who are now legal because all you have to do is show a driver's license.
There'll be 9 million before 2016. They're going to try and add another 9 million. They cannot pry the votes they need to control this country out of the existing citizens. They have to bring in people from other countries and let them vote illegally. Well, in New Hampshire, I intend to stop them as much as I possibly can and make at least the college students and political activists from out of state pay the price. So I'm not done with Mr. Cram. If he doesn't like this, sue me. I'm at 61 Tubbs Hill Road, Deering, New Hampshire. Have your attorney or the ACLU in Hampshire send me a letter. Let's do this in public because I think that's what they fear the most. Because I have your voting record, Mr. Cram, from Pennsylvania. I have Jana Rekavans from Pennsylvania. I have a ton of them from Connecticut. And I just ran into 2013 college students from Connecticut. Somebody has a website and put all the students from Connecticut who go to UNH on a website with their name and address and the town they're from. So I've been matching that with the Connecticut voter database.
They made it easy.
And they made it so easy it's not even funny. I've got a stack of it here anyway. I can show you later.
So Ed, there's something else that's thank you, Steve. There's something else that's bothering me about this stuff. You talk about domicile, and so they claim to be domiciled in New Hampshire, and they go and vote. So here's the thing: they're living in their dorm rooms in whatever town it is, Durham, okay,
Dover,
yeah, okay,
Somersworth,
and so they go out and vote. Now, a few years ago, they went out and voted in Durham and Dover, where they were domiciled, which you could make that case, albeit tenuous, especially if they had voted somewhere else. But in 2012, it was different. In 2012, and I think in 2014, they put them on buses and spread them out where they could impact state rep elections across the state.
Yeah, I've heard people complain about that in Dover specifically, the buses, but I don't follow.
Well, so that means that not only are they claiming to be domiciled here for the purpose of transient voting, but they are voting in locations different from where they are claiming to be domiciled. Or alternatively, they are falsely claiming to be domiciled in some other small town than where they are living for college. So this means you've actually got two layers of fraud on these people, and we should be able to get them for it twice over.
I just talked to somebody who he didn't give me the permission to use his name, but he gave the name of two voters they caught voting in his town and another town. He said, we got the documentation. I gave it to Labonte, and I haven't heard anything back. So at some point, your Attorney General's office has to respond. The law says the Attorney General's office may investigate voter fraud. It doesn't say shall. So they're taking the option of we catch one or two people a year, we'll just say that's what it is, and all of our peeps will repeat the same thing. There comes a point where in a federal suit you go, okay, this gentleman here has been handed voter fraud proof on several occasions and chosen not to prosecute it. But for me, if I try and challenge like we did in 2002 up in Hanover, if I try and challenge like we did before, there's now a memorandum that says that's against the law and I can be arrested for it. So they're trying to limit my ability to challenge. They're trying to limit CNHT's ability to pry into records by eliminating almost anything. And they don't want the general public to join in this because you can't look up New Hampshire's database like you can in Vermont or Connecticut. You can look up your neighbor. So the people that have absolute knowledge about something, about potential voters can't look it up in the state of New Hampshire. You can't get that information.
How do the candidates get the voter checklist now?
They get it according to where they're running for office. So if you're running from a Senate district, all you're going to get is your Senate district. You're not going to get statewide.
So what we need is a bunch of friendly candidates to get...
we need to sue the state of New Hampshire to show why it's important to keep the paid-for by New Hampshire taxpayers statewide database secret, unlike any other state. I can go to Connecticut and find out.
Mm-hmm.
I can go to Pennsylvania and find out. I got Jenna Rakavans right here. I got right off the database, right off the internet, the page. Once you have their birth date, somebody don't even need the birth date. Connecticut, you just put the name in. You follow down the list of names till you have your name, and it says, here you go. You match it with a town, and you match it with their approximate birth date, and you know who they are. And then when you go on the internet, you say, look up Alexandra Perez Caballero. I know her mother's name, let's say, is Marie, and Marie lives at Crooked Bridge Lane. Well, guess what? So does she, Crooked Bridge Lane. Well, there's Mom and the daughter. Mom's been a registered voter since 1975 or 80, and she registered to vote in 2009, came here and voted 2012, went back and voted there in 2014. Some of the people we've caught have not re-registered in their home state. Like Brian Gregory Griffith, the attorney that was voting at Martha Fuller Clark's voter fraud motel. I can't find him voting in Arkansas again. He's smart.
Wow.
Because he knows that we would track him from Arkansas to Martha Fuller Clark's house back to Arkansas, right?
So
there's your.
So he's basically invalidated his own.
Yeah, he's not voting anymore. Yeah, there's like 4 of them like that I caught that haven't re-registered. Sarah Ostino, she's from Florida. She voted from Meredith at the home of 2 postal employees.
In fact, if we allow our flexible domicile, if they come here, declare here, and vote here, as long as they vote here again and don't vote back home or don't vote in 2 places in the same year, they're not breaking our laws as they're currently implemented.
No, there's a case called the Neuberger case out of Hanover in 1972, and the federal court heard that, and the federal court said students, as long as they are otherwise qualified, that means domiciled, can vote in the state of New Hampshire. So we're saying if you're a college student, then become qualified. Declare this your domicile. Abandon the previous domicile. Don't stay registered there. Here's the list of college students from UNH or from Connecticut. The first page has 50 names. I caught 8 from the first page registered in Connecticut. So each one of these little goobers right here, each one of these is going to get a letter to the state saying, oh, by the way, if I catch them registered here, and then I get to look into their voter history because it's right on the database.
All right.
On the internet.
We're going to keep you up to date on this. Lots going on. We'll be writing about it. I'm going to take this to watchdog.org, too, because those people need to read about this fun story as well. Welcome to Grok Talk. Make sure you check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We're going to come right back with our good friend Kimberly Morin, and we will be right back. Stay tuned.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
We are struggling. Rising healthcare costs are part of the problem. Senator Jeanne Shaheen helped create this mess we're in. As a state senator, her bill chased 21 insurers out of our state. It reduced our choices, raised prices for New Hampshire families, and when Jeanne Shaheen supported Obamacare, it limited access to 10 of our 26 hospitals, reducing our choices again. Tell Jeanne Shaheen she's made healthcare worse. Few things are as important as finding the right doctor. And under Obamacare, that's harder than ever. Over a third of our hospitals no longer available. Our doctors no longer covered. Fewer choices, longer drives. No state has been harder hit than us. And even after watching it impact New Hampshire, Congresswoman Ann Custer still supports it. Call Ann Custer. Tell her Obamacare isn't working for New Hampshire.
It's a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Our apologies to our podcast listeners. The first 5.5 minutes of Kimberly's interview on the balsams and SB 30 was lost due to a technical difficulty. We resume the discussion already in progress.
We found out from the Business Finance Authority that the $28 million is really only going towards $73 million. So what's happening is they are splitting up the resort part where they'll update the resort, etc., and the timeshare part. So the only part that the taxpayers will be, and quote-unquote, invested in is the resort part. And I think part of it might, and I don't know if this is true, but part of it might have to do with the, taxes can now be assessed in this area. So if they build this, then they could look to the shareholders in the timeshares if this was to fail. So I think Les Otten is splitting these up intentionally so that if it does fail, we can't go to the timeshare holders to try to get our money back.
I just want to apologize quickly to our stream listeners on speaker. We had a major crap out, and I lost the stream for a bit, but it is back up. So, this is nuts, Kimberly, and thank you for doing all this research, by the way, because I know that people are interested in the fine details, and, we want to make sure we have them.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is, I got to kill this thing.
Well, listen, let me tell you something. They asked, I give the committee credit, they were asking really good questions. So, to me, I was like, oh, wow. I just figured it was going to get shoved through like the casino bill. I just figured it was going to get shoved through. But when they started asking all these really good questions, I was kind of surprised. But then when I got up there and I started telling about the bad things about balsams, and they kind of tried to shut me up, then I knew, it's not necessarily a good thing.
So they want to know how much trouble they're in, but they're still willing to step in and help anyway.
Well, yeah, they don't seem to care, and it was funny because they were talking about the value during the hearing. They talked about the value of the land and everything, and said, well, there's over 8,000 acres, and he brought up the timber survey and how much that was worth, which I brought up. No one's brought up before, and it's funny he didn't bring up the 5,000 of acres that were purchased by a conservation organization for $850,000 a few years ago. That land, if it's still owned by that conservation organization, cannot be counted in the value of the balsam.
It is. They never give it back.
What do you mean?
The conservation organizations, once they acquire land, they never give it back.
Exactly. And so that's 5,000 acres. That's $3.5 to $5 million worth of timber that they can't count in the valuation of the balsams, but they were, including Otten. So that was another thing I brought up, and it was funny because I heard someone on the committee, someone on the right that was sitting in the committee said, "That's right." So let's hope that the committee was a little bit informed, but because no one else had brought that up after 3 hours of testimony. No one else brought that up. You cannot consider that in the value of the balsams, and the balsam certainly isn't worth $28 million right now.
No, and that's exactly how these conservation groups work. They come up with a voluntary agreement to take certain areas off the table for future development, and they pay you something towards it, but not the full value. And it's supposed to be a partnership, but once you're in, you can't get out.
Yeah, that's it. You're done. So, the other interesting thing was that a committee member asked Otten if he had a plan B. So basically they said, if SB 30 doesn't pass, what is your plan B? And Otten actually said, plan B is plan A.
Oh, jeez.
So in other words, he pulled a Veruca Salt and said, well, plan B is plan A. I don't have any other plans. If you don't pass this, I'm just not going to build it.
You know something? That's the kind of despicable actions. It's like, I'm going to take my ball and go home. And so why are the Republicans letting themselves be held hostage to this?
Why not just let the place fall into bankruptcy and sell it off and see if anybody will actually invest?
Okay, well, here's the other thing, guys. Otten lied. Well, he might not have known. I shouldn't say that. During the testimony, he said, well, no one else wanted to buy this, and that is a lie. Because, and again, I don't know if he might not have known this, but the current owners certainly know this. There was someone else who wanted to buy the balsams beforehand, and they wanted to spend $10 million and upgrade it and make it continue as a resort. They didn't want to put all these ski slopes in and all these timeshares and this big, conference facility. They wanted to kind of make it back to what it was, only obviously upgraded and nice, so people would want to go up there. But so this whole thing, as I've said before, is all based on shenanigans, backroom deals. Who knows all the backroom deals that have really gone on? But the thing is, they're trying to say that SB 30 isn't actually about the balsams. But again, it wouldn't have come up if he didn't have his hand out. And why does he have his hand out when he has almost all of the money, over $100 million, to he could actually work on the project, right? He could, and he said during the hearing, he said, well, one of the reasons it's hard to get private investors is because, if you're not open and running, people don't see if it's successful or not. Well, why aren't you upgrading it, renovating the actual resort, running it, and then other investors will come in? I mean, he's using his own logic against him, because what he's saying is he can't start this project until the state backs up $28 million for him, because it's a bond that the state will allow him to get.
And yet he has a history of basically, as they say in the restaurant trade, chew and screw.
For American Ski Corporation or company that he used to own, he left that company $400 million in debt. He resigned as the CEO. Probably he was pushed out. Because I was just reading a book about him, or part of it, with the Red Sox, because, he talks most about the Red Sox. He really had a really way far back, get in the back of the bus kind of role in the Red Sox, because he didn't have the financing. And Jack Henry didn't like him. Excuse me, sorry. I bought that book just so I could look up the information about Otten. I'm not even kidding you. I'll probably never read it, but someone told me about it, so I looked it up. And thank you for tablets, because I can just do a search and find it rather than trying to go through the whole book, paper book.
Okay, no kidding. I was just remarking about that the other day, about how you can I love my Nook because I can just search any phrase or word or whatever and find everything. We're going to take a really, really short break. Kimberly, stay on the line, and we'll be back in about a minute.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. The Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
I am singing the blues. I got to tell you, the technological difficulties we're having today are enormous. So I've had problems with my recording stream. I have problems with my live stream. I've had problems with my Jazzler single box. We've had problems with Ustream.
Camera.
Chords. So the final version of this program could be interesting. There could be some gaps. We'd like to apologize for that because crap happens. But anyway, speaking of crap happens, we have the Balsams bailout. So, and that's why Kimberly Morin has joined us to continue this discussion.
If you guys can hear me, you'll have to unmute yourself.
I just turned your microphone back on. And I just turned his microphone back on.
Thinking of stuff that happened, did anybody bring up the toxic dump section of the property in the hearings?
You there, Kimberly? Oh, here we go.
Now I can hear you. Are you there?
Yeah. He asked if anybody brought up the toxic dump rumors.
Yes.
Okay.
Kevin Bloom did. Yes.
Okay.
Kevin Bloom. He testified like one person before me. And yeah, he did bring it up. And that's something that sort of just kind of disappeared and quietly went away. Because I looked into that, and then all of a sudden the activity on it being in the news ended. And that doesn't mean that the toxic waste dump ended. It just means, our swell investigative reporters that are in the mainstream media didn't bother reporting on it, which, oh my gosh, that's just so not possible.
Well,
right?
there's a standard rule in quality management that if you don't write it down, it doesn't exist. So this applies also to the media and apparently to latex-related toxic waste dumps at the Balsams.
Yeah, exactly. Liquid. I forget what I saw when I was doing the research because this project is so bad. That's why I call it the Balsams boondoggle, because it's so convoluted. And I even said that during my testimony. I'm like, I hadn't even heard of the SB30. Someone asked me to look into it, from North Country, by the way. And I started looking into it, and I was like, oh, my God, seriously. And it just gets worse and worse. And why they pulled Les Otten into it is beyond me, other than the fact that the guy probably promised them the world and is only going to hand them a freaking outhouse.
Question for you, Kimberly. Certainly Senator Woodburn, who is a state senator from up north. Obviously, the North is really poor economically, and they're just scrambling to find any kinds of jobs. Is he looking at this, and has he been pushing it politically because he sees it as probably the only lifeline that's come their way in any amount of time?
Oh yeah, he was one of the first one. I think he was the first one who testified at the hearing. And that's a lot of what was being said. Oh, the North Country, there's no jobs, there's no this or that. Well, the two current owners of the Balsams actually fired 300 people who were working there a few years ago because they wanted to close it down to renovate, except these yahoos never got any investors before they bought it for a low, dirt cheap price of $2.3 million, given that the timber survey ahead of time was worth $3.5 to $5 million alone. Just the timber by itself was alone worth almost $5 million before the two local guys, Hebert and DeGrasse, or whatever his name is, DeGrasse, they bought it. And they didn't have any investors because they didn't have any plans, in my opinion, to actually upgrade it. You don't buy something without getting investors to back you up with millions of dollars to do an upgrade. It seems to me that they wanted to flip it. They figured they'd buy it dirt cheap because that's what they got it for, and then sell it really quick, sell it rather shortly afterwards to some other investor. But it didn't quite work out that way. And these guys are now working with Otten, so it's like the Three Stooges of North Country trying to freaking sorry. I mean, I'm sorry. I listened to Otten, And it was funny. He was sitting behind me when I was giving my testimony. I could hear him making noises because he didn't like what I was saying. The man reeks of arrogance. And, you know, what I found out is, I don't know if it was Maine or New Hampshire, but they used to have, because he was so bad with just buying all these ski resorts, and rather than focusing on, you know, doing what he said and promised on the ski resorts he had bought, he just kept buying them more because he wanted to be the king of snow country. They had bumper stickers that said, more snow, less Otten. Because people in Vermont and New Hampshire, in New Hampshire and Maine, didn't like this guy. At first they did because he was doing, you know, all this good stuff, but then he got in over himself. It's like the emperor wears no clothes. You know what I mean?
He could start his own reality TV show, Flip This Boondoggle.
Oh, he could, and people would hate his guts. Just because of he walks into the room and he reeks of arrogance, and that's not a good thing, because he doesn't care. He was actually asked during the hearing, will you promise to only hire people from New Hampshire or up in that area? And he said no.
Well, that's a good way to make your case with local politicians, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, and, you know, I kind of get it. His excuse was, well, I don't know if I can only hire local people. What if there's not enough, blah, 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 blah. But he can't even make that promise, but he wants us to hand over $28 million. You know, and we already know that the two people that own it now tried to get that foreign EB-5 program going, and it failed. So we already know they were going to bring in foreign workers to try to work on the Balsams project as opposed to local residents. And you know what really kills me is this is basically the legislature saying to the taxpayers, we want to take $28 million, hand it over to a wealthy white guy so he can create low-paying jobs for basically servants to serve his wealthy clientele.
Can we start calling this the New Hampshire Solyndra Project?
It's worse than that. It's even worse than that, in my opinion, because you have all these poor people up in Co-op County who are like, yes, we need to do this. And one guy actually got out, I don't know if it was a rep or not, I can't remember. He's like, our young people are leaving. We need this so they'll stay. What young person is going to stay so they can be a servant to rich white people?
Hadn't thought about it that way.
I mean, seriously, most of these jobs are going to be low-paying jobs. It's going to be chambermaids, waitresses, servers.
Most of the construction jobs are going to be brought in. So.
But that's the huge thing, right? Most of it, because they don't. I mean, I'm sure they just don't even have enough people up there to do the construction jobs. Never mind filling all of them. You know. But yeah, so they're all like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Really? You want your kids' future to be this? No, the young people are still going to leave. Well, any young person who gets a taste of life outside of North Country is not going back, and not until they're older. And I'm not insulting North Country.
Unless they like the smell of balsam.
Well, the thing is, I'm not insulting North Country because I love it up there. We were married up there. It's beautiful up there. But guess what? I don't live there because there's no freaking job.
It's,
you know?
There's a lot of empty space.
Yeah, I mean, basically up there, you've got farming, maybe a little mining,
timber.
I don't know. You've got timber, and you've got people who work from home if the internet's fast enough.
And that's the problem. The internet's not even fast enough.
Tourism. So that's it.
Yeah, tourism. So you know, you either got to figure out how to exploit it, or it's a retirement area.
Right, exactly, and that's the thing is that's what they said. They're like, hospitality is our future. Okay, I can get that because you know New Hampshire is a huge tourism state. But if you really think that getting young people to stay here is by putting this in, that's wrong. And they're not. I guarantee they probably wouldn't even be able to fill all of the jobs. Supposedly, they want eventually by 2024 or whatever they'd have 1,500 jobs. Well, honestly, who is going to work those jobs? You know, I almost feel sorry for the people who are all hell bent on this because it's like that's your lot in life to do that.
Well, you'd think, there's nobody's going to commute that far because it's not worth it.
So the only people that'll do those jobs are not New Hampshireites because they'll go somewhere else and take their college educations for a real income, which leaves you with more Mexicans.
Right. They'll be shipping in seasonal workers. They'll
French
be like
Canadians.
a lot of hotels do. A lot of places do that. They ship in. My God, years ago, I spent years going up to Hampton Beach when I was a kid. They used to ship in the Irish or Canadians.
The apple orchards bring in Jamaicans. Believe it or not. Oh, yeah, to pick apples. They come up, they pick apples all summer, and then they go home.
Well, I know that there's a local farm that brings in, local up from me, brings in people from Eastern Europe on work visas. Some of them stay longer, obviously.
Yeah.
Most go back, but some stick around, and that's what happens. They're not the local kids like it used to be.
No, exactly. When we were kids, we would do those jobs. But kids are going off to college now, and they want more. They don't. It's not the same today as it was 20 or 30 years ago, where you just stay in your town and you work whatever jobs are there. People want more.
Yeah, I bet you that Les Otten is also urging that Congress give President Obama his fast track a trade authority, because it just came to light this week. It's another backdoor immigration, because basically it's going to open up immigration of workers across borders, just like they did in the EU. So, except we'll be dealing with people from across the Pacific. So no longer will they have to hide in the holds of the storage of the cargo ships. They'll just come on in the next 747 again to compete. We will become a borderless society if Congress, especially the Republicans, give Obama this ability. Yay for the American worker.
Yeah, no, exactly. We don't matter anymore. Don't you know that?
It's rapidly getting to that point.
Yeah, it pretty much is. It's funny. Like I said, I was interrupted, and they said, "Are you going to talk about the bill?" And I found a quote from the New Hampshire Department of Resources and Economic Development, and the quote says, "The passage of SB 30 is vital to saving the Balsams and transforming it into a world-class resort. If it does not pass, there may never be another chance for this landmark, and the opportunities it brings will be relegated to history." So, in other words, if SB 30 doesn't pass, this project isn't going to go forward. What does that say to you about Otten and the current owners now?
Doesn't say anything good.
No, it doesn't. They could already be working on this. They have over $100 million in financing. They could already be working on this. They could already be providing jobs. But they're standing there like petulant children waiting for $28 million from the state, and I still haven't figured out really why.
All right, Kimberly, we got to go. Thank you so much. You have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.
All right, see ya.
Take care.
All right, we'll be right back with Dave Bozell, not Brent. We'll be right back. This is GrokTALK.
New Hampshire is famous for scenic drives, but they're tough to enjoy when you're on your way to the doctor. Because Obamacare limits your choices, some will have to drive more than an hour to see a doctor. What's health insurance worth if care isn't there when you need it? Jean Shaheen voted for Obamacare, putting your doctors and hospitals further out of reach. Tell Senator Shaheen, Obamacare is not working for New Hampshire.
Jean Shaheen and her allies are making false claims about her record on veterans. The truth? Shaheen refused to meet with veterans pushing for reform. She wasn't on the committee that wrote the reform legislation and refused to co-sponsor important VA reforms in the VA Management Accountability Act until after the VA scandal broke. When our veterans needed her, Jean Shaheen was AWOL. Tell Jean Shaheen to stop distorting the truth and fix the VA.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTALK. 3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
All right, the technical difficulties continue, but we're going to keep pushing through them all. Just about everything that could go wrong has, but we're still here. We're still streaming live, and we're doing the internet new radio thing and everything else that goes with it, and we're not going to stop because we've got people to talk to. My name's Steve McDonald. I'm here with Mike Rogers and Skip Murphy. We are happy to have on the show with us David Bozell, the president of ForAmerica. Welcome to the program, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. How you doing this morning?
Hello?
Hey, you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
I don't even want to tell you how many. Normally the show goes off pretty seamlessly, but we're having a lot of technical difficulties, but we're glad we got you on the phone. Good morning.
Well, you know, when Bruce Willis said in Die Hard 2, technology peaked with frozen pizza, it's like the best quote of all time. He was absolutely right.
No kidding. So so TaxFoundation.org said yesterday was Tax Freedom Day.
Was that average for America, or was that for New Hampshire?
New Hampshire's was the 23rd. That was the average for America. States like Connecticut are in the middle of May. But David Bozell is ForAmerica. They have a pretty similar mission to us. I mean, if you listen to our intro, we're New Hampshire's leading. We're hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken. Well, ForAmerica is very similar. If you go, they have a very conservative message, very strong message, and one of those messages about tax reform. Correct?
Yeah, we've been talking the last couple of weeks since Tax Day, April 15th, about the need for the Republican field to talk about their tax reform, tax cutting proposals early and often. And I think a lot of the consultant crowd, they play it too cute by half. They try to look for this the most opportune inflection point to talk about what their candidate stands for with regards to tax reform and those types of things. I mean, look, everyone knows. We kind of look at it as like when Newt Gingrich talked about 80% issues. The tax code is unwieldy complicated. It's this tangled web of rates and deductions and giveaways, and no one can figure it out. Barack Obama spent over $500 million in 2008 promising tax cuts for 99% of the country, and he talked about it early and often. Every single day, every stop he made. And I'm kind of getting concerned that the field that we're looking at now has not been as vocal as I think that they need to be.
Anybody? I'm typing. Sorry. Go ahead, Skip. I'm trying to tweet, and the technology thing. Anyway, go ahead. God, it's killing me.
Certainly this presidential primary, since we're here in New Hampshire, we're going to be inundated whether we like it or not. The fair tax has come back up to play. We've heard about the flat tax. I just got through doing my taxes, taking 2 days of vacation time just to do that because I'm too cheap to go to a tax preparer. I've got 2 STEM degrees, and I'm looking through some of the stuff going, oy vey.
Right.
Do you think anything might come of and get some real tax simplification? We hear it out of D.C. every so often, and that head has come back up again. Obviously, some of the candidates are talking about it. It has become so vast up to 30,000 pages.
Yeah,
it's
but
like, come on.
But I don't think they mean it. When they say tax simplification, the next phrase you hear is closing loopholes, which is to say any little breaks that we might think we're getting from the tax code will be removed, but don't expect the rates to go down.
Right. I don't think that anything is going to be done legislatively right now in the short term because of two guys, John Boehner and Mitch McConnell.
Yep.
Here are two gentlemen that are not serious about the positions that they hold. They have no legislative game plan whatsoever to deal with the political and public policy issues of the day. Forget folding to the president at every opportunity. It is just keystone cops. They just have really no idea what they're doing. I equate the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader, to a head coach of a football team. During the week, Wednesday is game plan installation day. You announce to your players, how you were going to beat your opponent that weekend. With these guys, they just prefer to go to their members and say, "Well, how would you like to express yourself, Mr. President?" That's the gist of it. And
they'd be right at home in a gay community college.
Well, I just have no idea what it is that what their priorities are, other than this. You got to think that these guys believe that they can just run this monstrous government just a tick better than the Democrats, and that the country is just going to barnstorm and go vote for these guys. If there are two guys that could cost the Republicans the election in 2016, it's John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, because they've just created this apathy among conservatives. Nothing will change with these guys at the helm.
And that's one of the things that we are very much unliked by the local GOP here in New Hampshire, even though most of us have been on the actual state committee, because what a concept. We actually believe in the New Hampshire Constitution. We believe in the principles expressed by the current NHGOP platform. And we hold people accountable to those precepts and principles.
Right.
And yet they hate us.
And more to the point, we hold the state party accountable when they don't lean on their members to uphold those principles.
Right. Sure.
And you're absolutely right, because I have heard so often people are not voting anymore, and yet the NHGOP demands that just because we put up a candidate, we must vote for them. Are you seeing that at the national level as well?
Well, the turnout rate in the 2014 midterms was a 72-year low of 36%. The lowest turnout rate since 1940s. And yet the Republicans run around and claim that they have this mandate and they won this incredible landslide. Did they win the races? Yes, they did. But I actually kind of, tip my hat to President Obama when he came out the next day and kind of said, "I hear the people who didn't vote." That was very smart of him politically to sort of acknowledge that. And you can see the result is when he's doing his executive actions, which I don't agree with at all, but he's rewarded in the approval ratings because he's doing something. Agree with it.
Yeah, even though most of us don't agree with it, he's getting high approval ratings from enough people that do agree with him.
He's earning his salary, for God's sakes. I mean, he's going to work every day, as opposed to the upper echelons of the leadership of the Republican Party. I mean, it's a pretty simple system of government that the Founding Fathers created for us. I don't care which state that you're in. If the president can declare whatever the heck he wants, he can declare that the sky is green and grass is blue. And it's up to the Congress to determine whether or not they're going to appropriate taxpayer resources to make that declaration happen. That's it. I mean, it's as simple as it gets. And if these guys, if Boehner, McConnell, McCarthy, Thune, Cornyn, if these guys are just going to be rubber stamping, I just assume defund their offices. And defund the Senate and defund the House and just replace that with robots that are just going to rubber stamp these things. And at least I know what I'm getting instead of just being stabbed in the back with these promises of fighting executive amnesty, fighting Obamacare, but essentially just lying to everybody.
Not only will they not do it, they actually castigate the people that try to do it. Once again, we hear people, Brit Hume last month saying people probably wouldn't vote for Ted Cruz because they associate him with shutting down the government. Actually, most of us cheer that, but that's beside the point.
But he didn't shut down the government, did he? We all, anyone with a brain in their head.
No,
it was Obama that did that, and here he reads.
Exactly, and John McCain once again calling Cruz all kinds of names. The unions attacking Walker. All this, the people that actually try to do something.
I think Ted Cruz has a much better shot than people realize. It's going to be tough because of the things you just mentioned. The press and the Republican establishment are going to go at him, double barrel guns blazing. Okay, but if you look at the map with the delegate count and everything, I think there's going to be, when it comes to Iowa, and then you guys in New Hampshire, and then South Carolina, probably a different winner in all three, probably in the low 20s, and the field will separate itself to the top 3 or 4 guys. But the first Super Tuesday on March 1st is chock full of a lot of good conservative states. Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee. There's a lot of them out there. Virginia's a little bit of a wild card. But there's a lot of good. He could rack up some delegates, and then you get to the next Super Tuesday when you start getting into the southern swing, and you can do just as well. So he has a much better shot than people realize. Just if you look at the map, provided, and I would say this to all of them, provided that these guys give people a reason to go out and vote for him, and going along to get along is not a reason. And I think it should start with just a comprehensive tax reform, tax-cutting message of getting government off their backs and reminding people early and often. The world of communications has changed. Look at what we're doing today. We're talking on the radio, we're tweeting, we're faxing probably, we're all over the place. You got to take advantage of all these different mediums and talk about these things, talk about your message early and often. And I think the person who does that, the candidate who does that, I think will separate themselves.
I want you to, David, take a look, if you get a chance, to the hashtag 603 Alliance or search 603 Alliance on Google. We've created an alliance of grassroots groups in New Hampshire who are going to caucus and agree to vote for a conservative candidate in New Hampshire in February. So take a look at that. I know that ForAmerica's focus is using social media and the Internet. What else are you guys doing to try to really get this message out there?
Well, we've got an army of over 7 million fans on Facebook. That's where we just believe very strongly in the peer-to-peer endorsement model that only social media provides. And so we're really just relying on the army to spread the message for us. Beyond tax reform, Obamacare, and immigration, trying to keep the heat on the GOP leadership and doing everything that we can to stop Hillary Clinton in her tracks. Increasing her negatives is going to be critical. And we'll let the candidates take the high road, and we'll let the Army take the low road as necessary.
Well, the media is helping with the Hillary thing.
Well, the question is, who do they really want? Is it Warren? Because they have piled on Hillary in ways that we've not seen before.
Yeah, she's going to have she definitely does. There are pockets of the press that have now made it their modus operandi to go after her. Maybe they just didn't feel like they were treated properly by the Clintons, or they're younger. They're probably younger, really. Mm-hmm. They don't have any obligation to the Clintons at all. And I think it just goes, and it goes kind of where the country is. Human nature being what it is, you start to align yourself with your reporting aligns with your personal beliefs. And with the Clintons, you don't know where they stand on anything. I mean, they just flick their finger and put it to the wind. And so I think people just don't have any patience for that stuff anymore. And then with the stuff with the foundation and taking foreign contributions, the uranium stuff, it is just, where is there anyone in government working for the people anymore?
I would agree. No, nobody.
It's not about getting the money out of politics. It's about getting the power out of Washington. Because taking the money out of politics is always shorthand for defunding challenges.
Right, exactly. You're absolutely right.
All right, well, we're at the end of the segment. You are at ForAmerica.org, correct?
Yes, sir. And at David Bozell is my Twitter handle, and Facebook.com/ForAmerica.
All right,
Come
thanks.
join us.
Thank you so much for spending some
Thanks,
time
guys.
with us. All righty.
Enjoyed it. Anytime.
All righty, bye-bye. All right, David Bozell, ForAmerica. We are going to take a quick break, assuming everything works, which there's no promise today, but we'll be right back.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. If you have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
All right. We're a little busted up this week. Stuff's just not working right. Thanks again to David Bozell for talking to us about some very important issues, mostly about taxes. Ed Naile was here with some vote fraud. We had Kimberly Morin on about the Balsams. And, of course, we had Jane Cormier with a life update and Max Abramson. Hopefully we'll have all those segments up at some point in some form. It's kind of a wreck. I've got multiple audio recordings of the same show, 2 separate live stream feeds that I had to deal with to get the audio portion up. We have some choppy video. We had some issues really early on, but we're in the closing. We're in the last quarter. This is the end of the show. It's time to clean up, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to do the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And I have to turn your microphone on.
We got lots of candidates.
I could do what the heck? I've done everything else.
Well, Skip actually has the WTF for the week.
He
so
does.
Let's go with that. But
we had quite a few.
I
Choices.
got a good candidate right here.
We did. We had all the Clinton stuff, definitely. We had Mick Ayotte and the vote for Lynch. Maybe she just likes the name. I don't know. And then we had some chimpanzees.
We had
Bill Shaheen.
Bill, yeah. I mean, this week it was just a cornucopia. It was just overloaded. The chimps, yes. Do you now know that 2 research chimpanzees now have legal standing in a legal court? So, once again, I've been complaining that being an American citizen seems
I don't have any chimp sound effects.
Oh, he does that well.
He does. Monkey business,
yeah.
Well, but not Gary Hart style.
Yeah. So, what's come of it? There is an animal rights group that has been trying for decades to try to get legal rights for all kinds of animals that, they're just humans in other forms.
Didn't the Swiss give natural rights
Flowers,
to plants?
To plants, yeah. That's
next.
That goes way back. I think I even blogged.
It doesn't stop at chimpanzees.
No, it doesn't. So here you've got obviously intelligent animals. I love my Grok dogs. They're very intelligent as well. But I would never want to give them legal rights in a court of law. But a judge has now decided to let a court case continue to obtain those rights. And I'm thinking, with everything else in this country, why should I going wrong? Inside is out, out is in, good is bad, bad is good, left and right just don't understand
What is
each
it
other.
like doing Discovery on Bobo the chimp? Anyway, I want to know.
Well, basically what they're trying to do is
poo-flinging monkeys.
They're trying to the end game is to no longer use animals in research projects like this, and these chimps have been in captivity for quite some time, and they are trying to get the legal standing so that they can make it easier to go to a rest home for the aged chimpanzees.
Chimps.
Yeah,
Well,
and just stop that whole thing dead.
Let's consider a fetus to have the same legal rights then.
Well, that's
not to be tortured.
No, because chimp fetuses won't have those rights.
Yeah, but it ties into the
Remember, right? A female chimp's reproductive rights. We'll be dealing with that pretty soon.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean everything is devolving to that. When everybody is special, nobody is special from the movie Incredibles. And I see that, the flattening of everything to anything, so that there is no differentiation between you, me, or the Eye of Sauron here. You know, plastic's got to have feelings way back when. It used to be alive because it was oil before it was turned into plastic.
And before it was oil, it was plant life or animal life.
Yeah. I mean, you see these kinds.
my rights.
You see this continual linkage of everything to everything to everything to everything because of modern deconstructionist theory, that everything is the same. We're just a cog in the machine, which suits progressives just right because, it is what it is. But you're right. The what TF type of deal is, are we going to deal with chimps on a higher plane than we can with an unborn baby, is one way of looking at it. And it's just emblematic of the derailing of social smarts.
Right. And since we're talking about babies and the like, care of the Clinton campaign, they launched a new bumper sticker along with the tagline, "Where will you stick yours?"
Not anywhere on the Scooby van because you can't get within 100 yards of the thing.
Well,
you can't read it when it's going 92 miles an hour.
Not only that, but whoever wrote that had obviously never met Bill.
Yes. Oh yeah, did you see the cigar thing?
Oh yeah,
send cigars to Hillary. That was awesome.
And I'm keeping it at that.
Yes. Where would you stick yours?
Yeah, and there was a whole pile of cigars stacked up there.
Yeah, and that was in the picture, but apparently they've already sent tens of thousands. You can go to graniterock.com, see the post. It's a Facebook thing that you can go to the link, and you can go, and the money that you spend on the cigars goes to the Wounded Warrior Project, and everything after the cost to cover whatever it is, the cigars and the shipping, to ship them to Hillary's campaign headquarters. One address. They all go to the same place, and the campaign is really, really unhappy with this because they just keep getting boxes of cigars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, where did that originate again?
Wounded Warrior Project. I've had a link on the front page of Granite Rock.
Okay, yeah.
And somebody set it up. Some nonprofit or some PAC or something set up a web page and said, I guess what we're going to do. And said, well, what are we going to do with the money? Well, we'll donate the profit to the Wounded Warrior Project, and then you can order one, you can order dozens, and they just ship them all to her campaign headquarters. So she's getting boxes and boxes of cigars every day.
As used by Monica?
Not used. But as used. So, yes, that's the whole point. If you want to elect, Monica Lewinsky's boyfriend's wife, or just nominate her, if you're a Democrat, then make sure you have a cigar.
Yeah, you did bring up one serious WTF, and that was Kelly Ayotte's. And I haven't done the post yet. I had
people emailing me. How come you guys aren't talking about the Ayotte vote?
Yeah,
just didn't get to it.
Yeah, that's basically it. With all the video processing from last week's event of the 603 Alliance. But, here's Loretta Lynch, who admitted under testimony that she's in full support of all of Clinton's executive... Obama's executive actions as far as illegal immigration is concerned, and is full bore behind them, and his expansive use of going around Congress, and she's full behind this, and yet Ayotte goes ahead and votes for her to confirm her as the head law enforcement person in the country. When somebody says that they're willing to subvert the actual rule of law, don't you think you would have voted on principle and said, this is not a good thing? She complained about how Obama is going off the rails and being, shutting down Congress's role in the Constitution, and then she votes for somebody to help him support in that. Come on!
It's actually much worse. While some of us will be glad to see the back of Eric Holder, at least you know the devil you've got right now. And the problem here is, unless I'm totally misremembering things, when Holder was confirmed, he actually lied under oath. In other words, he tried to paint the picture of himself as a moderate, reasonable, even-handed would-be attorney general. He didn't say, and I'm going to subvert all of your rights and ship guns to Mexico. It was happening, but he didn't stand up there and say, hey, I actually am going to do bad stuff. This woman stood up there and said, I'm going to support the illegal actions of the current president. And she got confirmed anyway. I mean, Holder actually, as far as I remember, stood up there and tried to sound a reasonable, even-handed guy.
Yeah. All Democrats voted for her and 10 Republicans, including pretty much all the GOP leadership.
And
That's
I hear
in the Senate.
that McConnell actually whipped the vote rather than have a confrontation with Obama.
Not surprising. Well, like David Bozell just said, Mitch McConnell is one of the two worst people, one of our two worst enemies. The other one is Boehner.
Yeah, there is I haven't posted it yet, like everything else. There's another Pew Research study that shows that Obama's getting 85% of what he wants out of Congress, even though it's like what we talked about with David Bozell. They campaign on certain things. We gave them an overwhelming mandate in the Senate and the House to do the things we wanted them to do, and they're still doing what Obama says or wants, or the Democrats want, at a rate of 85%. Now, who are these people working for? Are they working for the Democrats or are they working for us?
Well, I mean, we have a very similar situation right here in New Hampshire with the Jaspercrats. And, they orchestrated a coup. They got the help of the Democrats to do it, and then they proceeded to advance chunks of their agenda.
Yeah. I mean, you look at that and you go, and then they wonder why Republicans aren't coming out to vote.
Well, I've got two reasons for that. And first of all, my memory was correct. Could you swing the eye around here, folks? And this is from the Hill 2 days ago, confirming what I just said, that McConnell helped to whip the vote to get those 10 Republicans on board. In other words, the Democrats are still running the chamber. There's a small semblance of difference. You don't have all the talk of the nuclear option. You actually get some legislation passed, which virtually nothing passed under Harry Reid. But the bottom line is the chamber still does what Obama and Harry Reid want it to do. What kind of takeover by Republicans is that?
No, and then you wonder, and I'm going to keep hammering this, is that no dime's worth of difference between the two parties. If they're going to act the same, maybe it is time for a third party. As much as I hate saying it, but I'm getting exasperated after almost 10 years of being politically active and trying to work for good conservative, good Republican principles, and seeing the GOP just throwing and littering their principles. It's all about nothing but the win anymore. That's it.
Right. And then there was the note that J.R. Hole sent us last night, and I went and reactivated my Forbes. Hang on, we got it right here.
Oops.
This is by Rick Unger, I think it's Rick, on Forbes.com under their opinion pieces. A dramatic and little-known rules change by the GOP takes control away from the grassroots and hands it to the party elite. They tried to make the world safe for Romney to be elected and to be re-elected, but they pissed off the libertarians so badly that Romney wasn't elected, and now the rules necessary to get not just a plurality of 5 states as it was, but now a majority of 8 states in order to get your name on the ballot at the convention are such that you now have an interesting game of candidate chess, or even what's that world domination game?
Risk
being played. If you can stay in the race long enough, you can deny the would-be nominee enough majority states to get his name on the nomination.
All right, we're out of time. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you, Mike. I got to cut you off. We're done. Bye.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jeanne Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our health care coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpack.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
All of the music on this program comes to us through Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers, and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, or anyone else for that matter.
GrokTALK.